16 pressures, 6 sacks, 0 blitzes. That won Philly the Super Bowl. Our draft blueprint. Are you still not believers? Shedeur Sanders versus Jaxson Dart. Let's look at it through a different lens today. And let's check in with Stevie Boy on where he is in his draft process.
Like you don't already know. It's the best time of the year, but man, am I stressed.
Of course you are. Just 72 days until the NFL draft. Mensch, you good?
I'm good.
Hey, Tuck, tickle me something sweet. Remember Howie Roseman? He was 2010 to 2014, I want to say. He was in charge of personnel. Then Chip Kelly came in. They demoted him. He had to. He was forced to relinquish, I should say, his duties as the final decision maker in terms of personnel when Chip Kelly was there. Well, he gets his job back. He got promoted again when Chip was fired and shown the door. And since being reinstated in that role, Howie Roseman, the general manager of the Eagles, has led this franchise to 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 Super Bowl victories, and 4 NFC East titles, right?
Pretty good run.
Not only has he won 2 Super Bowls, Mensch, he's won 2 Super Bowls against quarterbacks that are considered the greatest of all time, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, right?
Right.
So what have we learned from this guy, this Howie Roseman guy, who's not cut from the same cloth? No, seriously, I know Howie. Like he's not cut from the same cloth. He's not a former NFL player turned scout or football guy who's worked his ranks way up the ranks as an area scout and all. More of like the business side and understanding the concepts of it, and we'll talk to him at some point. But understanding the full picture from a business perspective, understanding the data, understanding what's worked in terms of developing rosters. Okay. He forever, even going back to 2010, when you go back and look at their drafts, and I was looking at it, like going back to the beginning with him, and obviously they got away from it a little bit, but his first draft, 2010, Brandon Graham, pass rusher, right? Nate Allen, defensive back from South Florida. Then third pick in third round, Teo Nashim, from Washington. All 3 premier positions. That's the theme. And it started with 2010. And he was doing it for a while. Chip comes in a little bit more focused on the offensive side, wanting weapons for their system. And then when he got his job back, it was right back to what he really believes in. The greatest personnel people I've been around, the decision makers, have always said, utilize premium picks on premium positions. Like just to boil it down. What are the premium positions? Quarterback, not running back, not wide receiver, quarterback, defensive line, pass rushers, guys that can cover the weapons, and offensive line. Okay. I looked at it. Premium draft picks in the last 3 years, first 3 rounds. Howie has had, the last 4 years, he's had 13 picks in the first 3 rounds of the last 4 years. 11 of those picks are on those premium positions. 11 of 13 picks in the last 4 years. 5 of them on the defensive line. 3 of them defensive back, 3 of them offensive line. And every year we talk about, they really need a wide receiver. You go back and look at the Eagles' history from 2010 until now. Their biggest misses are at wide receiver. They've had some good running backs they've drafted, but was it worth that pick and considering what they could have gotten at some of those other premium positions? And they've probably, out of any organization out there, have stuck to this blueprint we keep talking about, whether it's the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Packers, right? We've listed we've gone through all of them. The Bills recently.
And to his credit, I think he recognized the weakness at wide receiver and made the trade for A.J. Brown. He said, they hit on Devontae Smith. I like that pick. But they recognized overall we're not having as much success taking receivers early, so we're going to trade a first-round pick to get AJ Brown because we know what we're getting in that situation. So again, recognizing maybe where you haven't been as strong in the draft and address it through a trade.
It seems so simple, but there's a discipline to it, right? Because you look at a roster like the Eagles and you say, boy, we're that one piece away. We could really use that. But you keep grinding away on the defensive line. I started the show in the open by talking about, 16 pressures, 6 sacks. And they're one of 4 teams in the Super Bowl era to actually go an entire Super Bowl game without blitzing.
Yeah, they didn't need to blitz. You're right.
They didn't need to blitz.
Right.
And so when you look back in the last couple of years, when you draft Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo, when you draft Cooper DeJean, when you draft Jalix Hunt, right, in the first 3 picks last year, and you draft Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith the previous year with your 2 first-round picks. And I mean, there's so many things we can go into. Drafting a lot of quarterbacks, keep taking hacks at it. You know, the Bill Walsh theory, a lot of trades, valuing picks, getting additional picks, knowing when it's time to strike. There's a lot of different things he's done, but the foundation has been use premium picks on premium positions. And it starts really, truly with that defensive front. And that won him a Super Bowl. You go back to 2022, Jordan Davis, defensive tackle, 2nd pick, center. Let's get that offensive line shored up. 2021, Devontae Smith pick. But those next 2 picks, Landon Dickerson. And then Milton Williams, one of the best picks. It turns out to. How does Milton Williams have this critical of a role when every year you're drafting all of these dudes along the defensive front? But Milton Williams is about to go get rich.
Yeah, he's going to get paid.
He's going to get paid.
But you know what? Can I just say what's driving me nuts here? And I agree with everything you're saying. All of what you're saying is true. The Eagles are the better team. I can't, by the way, looking at the futures for next year, I can't believe they're not favored. I don't think they're favored to win the Super Bowl, which is crazy to me. But anyways, they're the better overall team. Draft defense.
Always getting FanDuel in. I love it.
It's great. All of what you're saying. Better team, drafted well in defense. That is the blueprint. Jalen Hurts is not getting enough credit for what he's done, and they're not getting enough credit for getting him in the 2nd round with the 53rd pick. I get it. He doesn't put up huge numbers. You look at how he's played in the 2 Super Bowls, the loss to Kansas City and the win to Kansas City, the plays that he's made at critical moments, the leadership that he shows, his ability to make plays again in critical times in this game. I was blown away. He was by far the better quarterback on that field. I'm not saying he's a better quarterback than Mahomes overall. Don't even start.
Yes.
Are you going to go into this? You're going to go into the supporting cast, all of that stuff. Great.
I'm just going to say Mahomes didn't have a chance. That wasn't it was the story, but it wasn't in my mind.
Last time I checked, that Chiefs defense is pretty damn good too, and they were shutting down Saquon Barkley for a large portion of that game.
They did,
and Jalen Hurts was making plays when he's getting pressured. He's making plays with his feet. Oh, the tush push is a gimmicky play. I don't care. Stop. The guy's a winner. He was a winner in college. All the resiliency this guy has showed over his career, losing the job to Tua when he was at Alabama, coming in relief in an SEC championship game and leading to a comeback win over Georgia. To me, listen, the guy doesn't get enough credit, and they don't get enough credit for taking him. He is a dude, and we'll all hear about the defense. And I'm also hearing all the talk after the game is about the other quarterback, because maybe he's not the guy that we thought he was. Maybe he's not Tom Brady. I get it. That's a conversation. Let's have it in a couple weeks. How about we talk about Jalen Hurts winning a Super Bowl MVP? How about Jalen Hurts' record in the playoffs as a guy who's under 27? I think only Roethlisberger and Mahomes have more wins. Like, how are they not? I mean, I get it. You're right. Better overall team. I get it. Great pass rush. They've done a great job of drafting defensive players. I'm stumbling now. I'm so upset. But Jalen Hurts, man, where's the love?
I mean, he was the Super Bowl MVP. Let me.
I know, but we're not talking about him. We're talking about everybody else right now. Jalen Hurts.
I'm not everyone.
I feel like other people are too. So maybe it's just my world. Maybe I have this bias. Listen, but
everyone's new to this show because this show is new. Okay. But we haven't been through a draft cycle. So folks out there who are tuning in, whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple, whether you're watching us on YouTube or Spotify or anywhere else that you get your podcast, let me explain something to you so that you're not sitting there confused as to why Mensch is an absolute wreck. And Mensch, we opened the last show last Thursday. And Mensch is saying that I said, Mensch, you good? And he's like, no, I'm not good, actually. And he's pissed off. He winds up going on a rant about Travis Hunter not being a top 5 pick. I want to go behind the scenes just for half a second here. You heard me in the open say there's 72 days to the NFL draft. I promise you can set your freaking clock to this. The closer we get to the draft, the redder in the face Mensch gets, the more irritable he gets. I can put it in my calendar 2 weeks before. I'm going to get a call about Mensch. The world is collapsing 2 weeks before the draft. The sky is falling. An asteroid's going to hit us. I'm not paid enough for all of this. No one respects what I do. Like, it's just like set your calendar, set your watch, set your clock to it. So Mensch is testy. It's not like, this is not new to me. That's why I'm sitting here and I'm smirking the whole time. Mensch is testy. Oh, shocking. 72 days from the draft, Mensch is testy. So Mensch will be fine on May 1st. I promise everyone. He'll be back to his jovial, fun self, the fun guy who's up in the woods in New Hampshire with his beard and doing all this fun stuff in the summer. But Mensch is going to be an absolute pill to handle for the next 72 days.
I like to think I just elevate the care factor. I just like to think it's a high care factor. That's how I would phrase it.
Let's spin this forward real quickly. Okay. I'm working on a mock draft for everyone. We mentioned it's coming out. It's coming out soon. We're dealing with some business stuff. Don't get bogged down in it. I'm trying not to get bogged down in it. It's coming out soon. I'm eager. I see everyone else putting out their mock draft. Like, we're working on it. I promise. I haven't done a mock draft in 2 years. And our folks here they're making me fight for it. And I love that. So it's coming out soon. But as I'm working through the mock draft in my head, and I'm talking to people in the league, and I'm making sure my draft board is up to date as possible at this point. When we do an exercise like this and we take a minute post Super Bowl to evaluate what's going on and what the blueprint should look like, I can't help but say, all right, let's spin it forward a little bit. What does this mean? What could this mean? If people are paying attention to the same thing that I'm paying attention to, and I think you are for the most part when you're not yelling at me about Jalen Hurts and where his flowers, I think there are a lot of smart people in the league, and I think it's gotten smarter, if I'm being honest. I don't think we can always say there's 25 or so organizations that are really, really damn smart. I honestly, I've been in this for 25 years and that wasn't always the case. I think personnel groups and departments have gotten smarter. I think there's a combination of analytical tools to self-assess. I truly believe the vast majority of teams in the league have gotten really freaking smart. Okay. So there's got to be some attention paid to what's going on. Why are those teams always winning? Why are we picking in the top 15, top 20? Okay. Mm-hmm. And I look at some teams as I'm going through this mock draft, and I see some pressure points, and I see some organizations that think, or they do have their guy at quarterback. And that's what this is all about. Build it before you get it at the quarterback position. But once you get that guy, you got to, and you see the draft order, if you're watching on Spotify, if you're watching on YouTube, when you get your quarterback, you got 5 years. And you're paying him like you're paying your best chef minimum wage. So you can use that other money to go buy on the front of the house, make it beautiful, buy all the beautiful chairs and the lighting, make sure your bar's stocked with the finest liquors, make sure you have a great wait staff and hostesses, all those things. That's essentially what it is. And so when you look now and you see New England picking at number 4, and it could be a couple quarterbacks before then. I think maybe just one. I think the Titans could wind up saying, you know what, this isn't our guy. This isn't our year for our guy at quarterback. Let's take the best player. So that would be an example of an organization kind of getting it and being like, you know what, we've got a significantly higher grade on Abdul Carter than we do any of these quarterbacks. And maybe Cleveland takes Travis Hunter, even though Mensch doesn't think Travis Hunter goes in the top 5 picks. And then maybe the Giants pull the trigger on one of these quarterbacks. Maybe it's Cam Ward. Maybe it's Shedeur Sanders. Maybe it's Jaxson Dart. We'll get to that in a little bit. Okay. But I get down to New England and I see a lot of people mock drafting, if you will. Travis Hunter there, if Travis Hunter was available, to Mensch's point the other day. I see a lot of people putting Will Campbell there. Yeah, Will Campbell, the offensive lineman from LSU, which wouldn't be a bad pick either. Let's build the trenches. Premium pick on premium positions. But watching the Super Bowl and watching all these organizations that have had success, when you get your quarterback, he can make up for a lot of sins on his side of the ball. He can't do anything, can't do much for the defensive side of the ball. So let's make it a great defense like the Chiefs have done with Mahomes, like the Bills have tried to do with their draft picks opposite Josh Allen, like the Ravens have done year over year, right, with Lamar Jackson, like the Eagles continue to do once they got Jalen Hurts, okay?
And that's how you beat great quarterbacks too, though, is with that pass rush. You know, you look at the Super Bowls that Brady lost and those Giants pass rushes that were just outrageous.
That's what beat him.
Again, the pass rush for the Eagles, it's always that if you want to make a superhuman quarterback look average, you have to have that great pass rush.
And the Patriots did it to Kurt Warner way back in the day too.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Schemes and a pass rush. So I just look at New England as they're going to be an interesting case study of maybe we take Mason Graham here at 4 over an offensive lineman, another premium position, but Mason Graham moves differently than just about any defensive tackle we've seen in a couple of years. For his size and his power, he moves differently than a lot of dudes. So that's one that's interesting. Number 8, you got Bryce Young, Carolina Panthers. That could be a spot where it's Michael Williams or Jalen Walker from Georgia, one of those pass rushers. And yeah, it's a position of need, so it would line up. But they also need a weapon. And I've seen a lot of people in mock draft Ted McMillan to Carolina. I don't see that following the blueprint. And I think Dan Morgan, the general manager, is a really smart guy. And I think Dan Morgan, with his defensive background, is looking at the bigger picture and saying, you know what? Yeah, we'd love to get Tet or a wide receiver in here, give Bryce Young a weapon, but let's go get that weapon in the second or third round. Let's go in free agency and get a weapon. We get some free agency money. Let's use these picks to build a great defense because we think we got our guy in Bryce Young. Go down to Atlanta. Michael Penix. They think they've got their guy. We'll find out. Time will tell. There's not enough reps to put a stamp on that. But I look at Shamar Stewart. I look at Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. And I start to say, like, that would be a good spot to go get a pass rusher because we think we got our guy at quarterback. I look down at Tampa Bay. You got Baker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe at Tampa Bay at 19. Let's make sure we take care of this pass rush. Baker's going to make up for a lot of sins. We saw it. He had his 2 star receivers out, and they still were moving the ball offensively. Let's make sure we got a great defense on the opposite side. So a pick later. Bo Nix at 20. Bo Nix they'd love a wide receiver. We got Emeka Ibuka, right? We got we got to get some wide receivers that are going to start to come into play from 20 to 32. We got Luther Burden III from Missouri. But why don't we got this defensive front? And let's look at this group real quickly. And I know I just go on rants. I'm sorry. And everyone yells.
No, you're good. This is where the value is, man.
Mensch doesn't get to talk enough and all that other shit. I get it. but I get incensed. I get in these like rabbit holes, and then I get like a dog with a bone.
Yeah.
I want you to listen to these names. Let's call them just top 40 guys, okay? That have a chance to go in the top 40. Abdul Carter, Penn State. 2 Georgia guys, Michael Williams and Jalen Walker. Shamar Stewart, who I'm in love with. Power rusher, effort, the whole thing from Texas A&M. Mike Green from Marshall, absolute star at the Senior Bowl after a phenomenal year with Marshall. The pressures leads the FBS. James Pierce Jr., I just mentioned from Tennessee. Nick Scorton, Mensch's guy, Texas A&M. Ezeruku even, Donovan Ezeruku from Boston College. Jack Sawyer. I'm not saying these guys are all going to be top 40, but they certainly could be. Josiah Stewart from Michigan, getting a lot of love from scouts I talked to. Those are all guys. I'm talking 10 guys that could go in top 40 picks. How about the defensive tackle class, inside defensive linemen?
Insane.
The IDLs. Mason Graham, I just talked about it. I think he should be the Patriots pick at 4. If he's not, he's probably going to go to Jacksonville at 5. Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. The running mate of Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Derek Harmon emerging out of kind of out of nowhere, body transformation that Jim Nagy talked to us about, recommitment to the game, looks different, disruptive defensive tackle at Oregon after a couple of years of Michigan State. TJ Sanders, I like this guy's tape, man.
Yeah.
Twitchy, athletic, disruptive. Alfred Collins, absolute beast for Texas this year. Had emergence after the two guys who were drafted pretty early last year from Texas, right?
Shamar Turner, another Texas A&M kid. I mean, that Texas A&M defensive line was
who's dinged
stacked
up and won't work out at the combine, but they're hoping to be back for the senior. And Tyleek Williams, Ohio State. All guys, we're going to talk about top 40, top 50 picks. There's a bunch of dudes. So right
the Kentucky
there,
defensive tackle Walker, you didn't even mention him. I mean, you can't. It just keeps going.
We're talking close
guys,
to 20 defensive linemen, from edges to inside defensive linemen, that could go in the top 45. Let's call it 40 to 50 picks. Top 40 to 50 overall. I'll be really interested to see if more teams and more organizations are starting to see what we have really, like, in the last couple years, it has, like, a light bulb has gone off in my head. And now we're talking to GMs about it. In the Decision Maker series, we're going to continue to ask every GM. And speaking of which, this is a good time to transition. We're going to be at the Combine. We got two GMs that we interviewed at the Senior Bowl. It was awesome. The response, the viewership, like, I've gotten more texts from people at my former job, inside the league, like, people like, great interview with so-and-so. And the so-and-sos were Nick Caserio, the general manager of Houston Texans, and general manager of the Baltimore Ravens, Eric DeCosta. They were awesome. They really were. They were awesome. And so we've got a blueprint, and the way they opened up and shared things, and it's just a different format than we've ever seen with the general managers. We're going to continue to do that at the Combine, which is coming up. Excuse me. This winter, man, it's getting to me. We're going to be there. So the Combine is the 24th through the 3rd, February 24th through the 3rd. There's a lot of, like, pre-stuff for agents, and the players come in and get their heights and weights and all that stuff. But it really ramps up on the 25th of February. That's on Tuesday. We get in on, I shouldn't say it ramps up. There's just heights and weights and stuff. On the 26th, that Wednesday, is when we get in. That's the night before, the eve of the workouts. So we're going to be there on the 26th. We're going to do shows, potentially live shows. We'll keep you posted on it. But we're going to do shows every day during the pre-show on the 26th. And then on the 27th, it starts with the workouts, okay? Which is Thursday, the 28th, which is Friday, and then Saturday, the 1st. We're going to fly back on Sunday, the 2nd. There's going to be the offensive line workouts. We'll watch that, and we'll have a recap just a couple days later. But this is the offseason and draft schedule if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Spotify. The Combine week, you see that in late February, early March. And then free agency begins on the 12th of March. That's where all the mock drafts get ripped up. We start them over right after that. After that first, like, big, movement week. Really, it's a week before, and then the first week of. Then league meetings are on the 30th of March. And then right after that, it's just hardcore. Like, we're going to ramp it up. For the next 2 weeks, here's the bottom line. Next 2 weeks, it's Tuesday and Thursday shows, okay? Today's our Tuesday show. We're going to have a Thursday show. And then we're going to do the same thing next week. Then we're off to the Combine. Please join us. It's going to be an awesome week. We'll have interviews with GMs, as I mentioned. We're going to stack a bunch of them while we're there. We're going to have the 4 shows from the 26th of February till March 1st. And then after that, we're probably going to shift and come a little bit earlier in the week and do some live shows as well. And I think when we get to April, Mitch, there's just going to be so much stuff. We're going to be flooded. I think we're probably going to ramp up to three a week, but I haven't even talked to programming about that yet. So we'll get there. But now the schedule for us. We appreciate everyone tuning in. I know the Super Bowl ended. Everyone's got a little bit of a football hangover, if you will, a little football fatigue. But like, this is the time where we start really diving in. We're watching tape. We're trying to make assessments off of tape. Then we get all the Combine numbers. Then at that process, like, my whole goal is to get a lot of these top 100, top 150 guys every year done on tape, because I love going into the Combine with an evaluation basically done on their tape. So when we start to make some movement, it's, this cornerback ran a 4.3. I thought he was maybe a 4.45 guy, right? We see some different things that come out, and then you get the information. Whether it's the medical checks at the combine, hey, they got to go back for a recheck in the medical rechecks. Who are those guys? What other medical information are we getting? What character information are we getting? How are the interviews going? What are teams here? Like, we have so much information that I've never been able to use before, Mensch. Never. Maybe an occasional .com piece, like some buzz I'm hearing, but even that stuff had to be pared down. We get to just unload all of it right here. And so please stay with us. We're going to have a fun couple months, man. We really are. Like, I'm more fired up about this than anything we've ever done professionally. And we appreciate everyone tuning in. Please give us a subscribe, a like, all the things that you know to do on the podcast to just help support us as we try to grow this thing, because it's first year through. All right. Anything else on your plate, Mensch?
I just want to get into Jaxson Dart right now. I mean, we're going to do that. Let's go.
You got your hotel booked, right, for the combine?
Yeah, we're good. Thanks, Marissa. I would be lost.
I know. I know that feeling. I also want to mention this is the first time you've actually come to the combine.
Yeah, my first trip there.
Yeah. I can't wait to have you, man. It's going to be
I'm excited.
Like, your room is going to be the film study room. We're going to have all sorts of room service there. We'll have to bring air freshener and stuff. But it's an awesome week. It's an awesome week. Okay. All right. So I've been struggling with this, and I told you from the jump. October 22nd, we had our first show, and I promised full transparency. Okay. I have done just about every tape on Shedeur Sanders, and I'm now up to LSU, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Duke on Jaxson Dart. Okay. Those are the games that I've actually studied and taken my notes on tape for Jaxson Dart. And the list, it's a long list for Shedeur. It's not even worth it. It's basically every important game. What are your thoughts? Let's start there.
I'll start with just talking about Dart.
Okay.
And I'll give the example of the Florida tape, right? The Florida tape, they lose that game. He throws a couple picks late. He throws one that's just a terrible decision into triple coverage on, he didn't need to force the throw. They're driving. They're on the plus 40. It's late in the game. I think it was first down. He forces this throw into triple coverage. It's a bad decision. It's a bad throw. And I'd watched so much of Ole Miss over the year, right? And I'd seen so much of Jaxson Dart. And then you go back, and this is the difference between watching as a college, like you're evaluating, how these teams are playing, and then digging into the prospect, right? If I could put a 2-minute highlight film of the plays that Jaxson Dart makes in that Florida game, there are plays that he makes in that Florida game that I think few other quarterbacks can make. He's ripping the ball down the middle for a touchdown. He's dropping the ball over the top. He threw for a ball to his tight end from the right hash, and the tight end's running a corner on the left side of the field. He drops it into the tight end, and the tight end drops the ball. When I go back and watch, I'm excited. I am so excited after watching his tape. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that the conversation you said at Mobile, could he be quarterback too? And I almost broke my neck. I was like, oh wait, what? Is that a thing now that Jaxson Dart might be quarterback too? That's a thing, man. That is without question a topic of conversation.
Let's just start there. So I did the Florida tape. Florida tape was one of the tapes I added to my catalog, if you will, of games. He was flat out phenomenal.
It's crazy, right? That's the bad tape.
These are my notes, okay? And I don't care. We're going to go a while. I don't care. I promised 45 minutes to Dan and Tucker. I always lie when it comes to timing. I'm sorry. Decisive reads. Accurate and quick trigger on short to intermediate. Great throw first drive, but he got his tight end decapitated. I don't know if you watched that play.
He did. But
also a corner fell off of it.
And the other receiver's spacing was off. Get out of the receiver ran the defense.
100%.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Play 18, terrible drop. Play 18, terrible drop on a corner route. Perfectly layered.
Yep.
But the thing I love, he came back. And on that throw on play 18, pressure in his face, layers it in beautifully, okay? drop. Comes back to it on play 30. Same exact route, same receiver, and the receiver kind of double catches it, but catches it. So confidence in your receiver, confidence in the play design, okay? Play 22, touchdown, dime, post, drops it in beautifully. Leading his this is overall notes. Just like now we're like through 20-something plays, and I'm like, just quick note, like leading receivers open, touch, timing, placement, okay? Play 26. Throw open after third plays 26 and 27. If anyone who's a tape junkie was like, if you want to see two play, I love when plays stack together. Plays 26 and 27. I thought were great examples of him, like when he's rolling, what he has to offer. Throws his receiver open, third down, and then play 27. It's an absolute dot, just a laser on a post touchdown. Now they're leading 14-7. Okay. That's 9:35 left in the second quarter. Then my notes are tough, efficient runner, dog competitor, hit after hit, helmet getting knocked off twice, kicked around on the ground, popping back up. Okay. And this is a week after, don't forget, this is a week after the Georgia game when he gets knocked out. And I'll get to the Georgia game in a minute. But then the thing that everyone remembers from that game, after he's gotten his ass kicked, he's been running the football more. He had, I wrote it down, 5 long, important, critical runs in that game, okay? He's exhausted. And it came after he had another long run, and he was just wiped, and he's pressing, and they're down 24-7. And remember, this is when your guy Pegues, I don't know what got into Lane, but Pegues has become like he's like a featured back now, and they're not getting
like 20 carries. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's like 3 plays I'm clicking through. It's Pegues. And they're not picking up those 4th and short, and they've got drives that stall. They moved the ball on offense the entire game against that Florida defense that's young, but got really good late in the season, okay? And down 24-7, drove him into Florida territory, but then he had the worst decision I've ever seen him make. And I don't have an explanation for it. I don't know if it was the helmet getting knocked off twice, a little rattled. I don't know if his head was spinning. I don't know. And I'm not going to excuse it away because I'm not going to become an apologist. It was a disgusting decision in a critical moment. And he made it. It's hopefully it was. And he'll be the first to tell you. He's disgusted with himself. Like, we're not here to like sugarcoat shit.
No.
And he knows it, and Lane knows it, and you move on from it. But it was the worst decision I've seen him make in his career, into the end zone with 147. It was play 75. Then they get the ball back with 103. 2 good plays, gets him back into right around midfield, and then he throws an interception but it was a miscommunication, but they got away with it, the penalty.
And then you really do need to press. Like you have to press at that point.
And he did on the next play when he actually threw the interception. It was another miscommunication, but it was a trash decision. And I think you saw a quarterback who was just run down. Georgia, rain game. Nothing about it pretty. Gets his hand knocked on a throw early in the game, gets knocked out of the game. But like the toughness to come back, went to the locker room, fixed up, right back in, okay? I thought here's the notes I had. I thought it was interesting. If you really rewound and really studied the coverages, anytime a quarterback makes a decision where I'm like, I wouldn't have made that decision, but it was the right decision, I get impressed.
Right.
Like I think it was one of the first throw, maybe the first throw of the game. He opted out of throwing a screen, and I think it was like no loss. He held on to the ball, whatever the final decision. The corner fell off of his first read. Of where it was a zone coverage look that they disguised as man, and he dropped into the flat. It was like a slot corner or whatever it was. And his preparation, his tape preparation told him, don't make that throw. Whatever it was, the back turning, because the corner on the perimeter didn't bail yet, and he still turned down that throw. And had he made that throw, the flat defender, the slot guy, would have been right there. Probably wouldn't have picked it, but would have knocked it down.
Right.
Fascinating to me. He did that a couple times. So I put in my notes, step ahead on his reads. The other thing I noted in Georgia game, and the same thing's true in Florida and all these other games, don't overlook the fact that he makes the easy stuff look easy. He plays with it. Like the structure of the offense runs. And yes, there's a lot of spread stuff. and sometimes the reads can be a little bit easier. Sometimes Lane just out coaches and out schemes the defensive coordinator, but he's making decisions, pulling the trigger. He's setting his protections more this year. He's checking out of some bad plays. I see a maturation in his game that I hadn't seen previous to this year. Okay.
And agree or disagree with me this really quickly. The supporting cast, he didn't have Trey Harris the second part of the season. I didn't think there was times where I'm watching and I'm like, he has nowhere to go with this ball. Guys just aren't separating. And then he's making plays with his feet. He's extending. And I thought the pass protection was an issue at times. I don't want people to look at that. I love that Ole Miss team because of their defense and Jaxson Dart. But when you look back at it, they had a lot of productive receivers, but I didn't think he had an elite supporting cast when he was there.
I said in Georgia, his receivers hung him out to dry on three different routes. Like the routes were wrong. Yeah. They didn't flatten. They had, in addition to the routes being off, and he didn't sell any of them out.
No.
But you could tell watching the tape, the routes weren't right. And in addition, they had several drops in both games. Okay. Both of those games, which were in addition to all the other drops and things I've seen in other games. So that's Jaxson Dart at 6'2", 226, 9.5-inch hands, man.
The other thing I'll say is,
I
had the same note as you as decisive, but without rushing. It's decisive, but if it's not there, he's getting to his next read. Like you were saying, a step ahead of your reads. I saw it as if it's there, he's taking it right away. If it's not, he's getting to his next read. And if that's not there, he could take off and either extend or scramble for a first down. And he doesn't have the speed of a Lamar Jackson. He doesn't have the power of a Josh Allen, but he does have a little bit of that Drake May running ability. He has a little bit of that.
I love you. So I went, and I do this every year. Like, I'm not going to make a decision on these quarterbacks until I go back and study tape, not of their rookie season or second or third year in the NFL. What were they coming out?
Right.
So I went back and I watched both Jaden Daniels and Drake May.
Right.
Jaden's a damn unicorn, man.
Yeah, he's like Lamar and Jaden are on a different planet. They're a different universe, I think.
The ball jumping out of his hands, the accuracy, even on slight misses, they're only like the degree of difficulty throws he made.
You're talking about overall. Okay, I got you.
Jaden, when I went back and studied some tape, and I took an hour last night because I was like, I got to put this in perspective because we keep saying, well, if it was last year's draft, and there's clearly a difference. Jaden was a unicorn. And we knew it. And I told you, like, I had the same grade, just like one spot, and Caleb, and I can live with it. But I promise you, I was yelling to nobody who was listening that, like, we're underrating Jaden. Okay. I don't have a problem with my evaluation on Jaden. I don't. If we're going to have a problem, we'll see in the future with Caleb, but it's not with Jaden. Drake May was interesting because I see a lot of similarities in Jaxson Dart's game for exactly what you're saying. It's not this twitchy mobility, but it's the ability to elude a defender. And when they run, it's not like elite speed, but it's this like efficient, tough, aggressive, everything's north-south. And I'll get to Shedeur Sanders in a minute. Everything with Drake is north-south, advancing. And I think a lot of that comes from Lane. Like, we're not going sideways. We're not going backwards. Climb the pocket. Not there, take off, run. And don't start scrambling around to the right and get it to the outside. Get up north. Get north immediately, okay? And the same was with Drake. Now, Drake did a little bit more running around and didn't have protection, and his receivers sucked, and I didn't like the system and all that stuff. But I put in the tape of Drake right after, on purpose, right after studying more of Jaxson Dart. It's very similar tape in terms of trying to be decisive, trying to keep things moving, progressing north, right? Efficient as a passer, right? Even though like the production numbers and the stats wouldn't say it, but like throws are there. The difference was Drake May, the ball popped off his hands a little bit more than it pops off of Jaxson. Jackson's got a 2. We do a 1 out of 5. Drake was a 1 in terms of 1 being elite, top end, highest level, outstanding. 2 being, and we only do these for position specific traits, for critical traits. 2 being good. 3 being average, 4 being below average, 5 being marginal. Okay. So I think Jaxson is a 2 in terms of his arm strength. Drake Maye is a 1. With Drake Maye, the athleticism, I think they're same, like the speed and what they do. I really do. But it's just different when I popped in the Drake Maye tape because I'm watching a guy who's 6'4", 223 pounds versus 6'0", 17. Jaxson Dart was 6'1", 7/8 of an inch. So we'll call him 6'2" and 226 pounds.
Right.
So to watch a taller guy with the same agility, maybe honest to God, like slightly better, is really impressive. And so as I was watching this, like Drake Maye, minute 50 left in the first quarter against South Carolina, 2023 tape. I watched that play and I'm like, wow, like what an athlete for size, you know? And it's a similar athleticism from Jaxson Dart, but at his size, it just looks different. Okay.
Right.
Then 12:25, second quarter. And remember, with Drake Maye, it was a lot of like the zone read option, RPOs, all that stuff. And so like it just was hard tape to churn through.
Right.
Because there wasn't as much like pro style progression read stuff as there is with Jaxson Dart and some of these other quarterbacks, right? But 12:25, second quarter, scrambles to his left, scrambles to his right. This is against South Carolina as well. Then he throws a strike across his body where you're like, it ain't pretty, but my goodness.
Yeah, who does that?
There is so much on this canvas to work with, right? And so there's just more. He's just more talented. He's bigger. He's just as maybe slightly more athletic. He's got a stronger arm. But the same reasons that I like Drake Maye are a lot of the same reasons with Jaxson Dart, okay? Shedeur Sanders. I went back and watched more tape on him just to kind of refresh and keep – because as we go through these positions, you and I do this all the time. We do with the colleges in the preseason because they've got 30 players from Ole Miss. So it doesn't make sense to do by position, go back and forth and back. So you're ripping through tapes, offensive side, then defensive side for Ole Miss. That's just the process. But you get to now and we got to start stacking them. And I always talk about during this process, the very beginning, in the summer before, we're air traffic control and we're just trying to get 1,000 planes up there. And then as the season progresses, we're trying to just steer them towards where they're going. And at this point, Eric
DeCosta talking about the buckets. Eric DeCosta talking about getting guys in the right buckets and then figuring out within that bucket, how do we rank them?
Exactly.
Everyone's doing the same thing.
And so now we're starting to figure out what bucket they're in or air traffic control, like what runway they're headed towards. Now we got to stack the planes. And all right, this one goes first. This one's going to follow up 90 seconds later. You watch a busy airport every 90 seconds. Boston Logan. I've talked to people there. Both my parents, by the way, worked for Delta Airlines for 40 plus combined years. So I kind of got a fascination with planes. But every 90 seconds, busy airports, they're ripping through, right? And so who's next up? And that's kind of how we're processing all this. So as I went through and watched the Drake Maye and I watched the Jaden Daniels, it helped give me perspective on how talented this class actually is as a whole comparatively. But now I want to go and we do it for every position. Let's watch these quarterbacks back to back to back to have it fresh in your mind. It makes it easier as an evaluator. And I know talking to people in the league, they do the same thing. Area scouts, for example. Area scouts, they spend like 4 months on the road doing their area. So if you're the Southeast scout, you got all the SEC teams, you got some ACC teams, right?
Yeah.
You got some smaller school guys in your area. But then what happens is you get done with that process and then you do a cross check. And so we'll talk to all of our friends in the league and we'll see them at the Senior Bowl and they'll be like, yeah, I've got defensive line this week, or I've got tight ends and linebackers, So
what'd you see?
Sorry.
I want to know. I can't wait.
Utah was one of the games I watched. First play, terrible interception by Shedeur. Okay. Doesn't see the linebacker undercutting. Everything is chaos. Love how he stays calm under pressure, but needs an offensive coordinator in the NFL that's going to work to speed up his clock and force him to play within the construct. Because he is truly the best pure passer in this class in terms of it's an interesting dichotomy. And I've got pages of notes on him because, going through all the different games. The interesting dichotomy in Shedeur is and there's two parts. He scrambles so much. He extends plays. He's creative, right? But he's not an elite athlete, okay?
No.
So I worry about that at the next level. Is he going to be able to extend plays at the same rate or with the same effectiveness that he does? And the second part that's hard to explain, I'm going to try to do it here. His instincts as a passer are brilliant. There was one play, play 60, for whatever, anyone out there is a lunatic. The rush is bearing down. This is against Utah. Rush is bearing down on him, but he senses a receiver cracking open down the seam in the middle of the field, okay? And the pressure is like right in his face and like almost no look, just flings it, snaps it off. Doesn't have a great arm, has an adequate NFL arm, but he snaps it off and he gets it down there. A lot of guys wouldn't have seen that receiver even be on the verge of breaking open. Right down the field, right on target. Can't even see it. Like one of those where like falling back, pressure in your face, and delivers a strike. Okay. His instincts as a passer are phenomenal. His instincts, though, in the pocket are going to get him killed if he doesn't learn to play on time, on schedule, and start to speed it up. Now, we said the same exact things about Patrick Mahomes, and please don't even start with the nonsense you're comparing to Patrick.
You keep
I'm
doing
just saying, you can make those steps. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, all have improved their accuracy. Patrick Mahomes is one of many examples of guys in the NFL learn how to play within the confines of a system, right? And learn how to speed up their clock and didn't play hero ball all the time. And that's what Chicago's going to try to do with Ben Johnson, with Caleb Williams. That's the challenge. Because he's got everything else. Can he play on time? Okay. So that's going to be a big challenge for Shedeur. My takeaway was this, Mensch. I wanted to come out of this and say definitively, Shedeur better than Jaxson. Okay.
Get off the fence.
I'm not on the fence. What I'm telling you is everyone's saying Jaxson, it's these two quarterbacks at the top of the board. Everyone's saying it, right? You get on X, you get on Instagram, you turn on the TV. Everyone's saying the same. It's Cam and Shedeur. I'm saying we'll get to Cam in a little bit, and we did it early in the process, but we'll keep coming back to it because it's the most important position. I'm saying I'm not seeing a big gap between these two quarterbacks. Truly, I think
agree.
It could truly come down to what are you looking for? Because my biggest takeaway in this whole process, studying more of Shedeur, studying more of Jaxson, going back and looking at Jaden Daniels and Drake Maye, this whole project that I've done. My biggest takeaway is that there's not two of them. One, there's not a huge difference between Shedeur and Jaxson Dart in terms of talent and their potential to be starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And that may shock some people. Number two, they're completely different styles. It's almost like watching a different sport when you're watching Shedeur, the scrambling around, holding onto the ball, trying to, beautifully creating and giving his receivers more time, but everything's east, west, backwards, running around, and then making a beautiful throw because of his unbelievable instincts and his touch and his ball placement and all the things that he has that make him the best pure passer in this class. But with Jaxson Dart, if I'm an offensive coordinator, if I'm an offensive head coach like a Brian Daboll, some of these guys, a lot of these guys in the league, and you have a quarterback need, and you're looking at this and saying, if I don't know if it's about winning now, but like I'm looking for a guy who's a little bit more in tune with running my offense,
right?
Who's going to keep it moving forward. Everything's climbing the pocket, tucking and running. If the read's open, sense it before and get the ball out. Take the 3 cents change instead of looking for the full dollar, right? On a lot of plays. That's the difference between the two.
So I'm not a big analytics guy, or I don't know how to say that. I haven't used analytics a lot over the course of my career, but I am trying. I do think they're an important tool and becoming even more important. So I get a little bit nervous when I start talking about these numbers. But when you talk about average depth of target for a quarterback, Jaxson Dart is by far higher than any of the other top prospects. I think he's at 12.4. Cam Ward's, I think 2 yards below that. And then Shedeur's in the 8s. And that's what concerns me about him a little bit, is how effective is he pushing down the field. You watch his entire college career, he is a surgeon when he is in a rhythm. He can dissect a defense. That's when we were talking about the dichotomy, that's what's interesting for me about him, is that he has the ability to get the ball out quickly and beat teams with short intermediate throws and just go right down the field if he wants to. But sometimes he just chooses to try and make the big play and hold on to the ball longer. And he's a little bit, I don't want to say lackadaisical, but nonchalant about contact. It's not only him holding onto the ball and taking those big hits. I've seen him not get out of bounds fast enough and take a big hit. I've seen him hold on to a ball that he's going to throw away and take a big hit. And it drives me nuts because he's so talented. You just, you got to be better. And again, I know his offensive line's not great. I know it was a little bit better this year. I know it still wasn't great. I know his supporting cast outside of Travis Hunter isn't great. I understand all of those things, and those things are true. There's stuff that he could have done to protect himself against big hits.
100%.
Right. So there's other things that are at play when you watch him on tape. And I agree with you. I think it's a great way of saying it. And I'm always busting you on this one. I'm always trying to get you to be like, all right, well, who's quarterback 2, McShay? I think we're in a conversation now. I think it's not, and I think that's a great thing for this class, by the way. Jaxson, we don't have to say because Jaxson Dart is rising that all of a sudden Shedeur Sanders is falling, because everything we saw about Shedeur hasn't changed since the last time he took the field against BYU. Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden to be like, he's falling off the map. Well, based on what? Because Jackson's rising? It's just those two things don't add up to me. So I think it's great. And I think it's even a conversation again, but you kind of hinted at it too, about who do you want to run your offense? And this race is not over. We're on like mile 20 of a marathon. It's tough right now. You're trying to figure it all out. You've done a lot of homework, but you're on mile 20. You're trying to get to that finish line, and that's what's going on. And Cam Ward, everyone seems to think he's number 1 overall right now, and that's good. I mean, he had a great year, talented kid. I think these three, there's going to be an interesting conversation, and then the other conversation will transition to how early, because we know, comparing him to last year's class, I think we still all agree, not the same as last year's class. Still 4 or 5 for the top quarterback in that class. Whether if it's Cam Ward's the first quarterback, you'd probably be taken 4th or 5th last year. I still think that's true. So how early do you go? Are there going to be 2 quarterbacks taken in the top 5 because of need, and because these guys are now, as we expected, climbing up a little bit on teams' boards? It's going to be interesting to see.
I'm glad you brought analytics in, because it's something I know. Like, I get so much shit on my X feed and all that stuff, but I did we have PFF Ultimate, like we have all those stats, and we go through and try to.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and there's some things that help support what we're saying, and then there are some things that I look and I'm like, I better go take another look. Who's this edge rusher that that I've got, that I haven't done his tape on at one point in the process, or I've got him at 32, but every time I'm looking at different analytics or different numbers, it's popping up, whatever it is. So 90% of what I get on X, I either look at and laugh or I just ignore. But it was fascinating. This person, I don't even know who it is, and there's no name on it, but ZWK at ZWK Football. I'll give him a plug here. The same stats that we have our hands on and we utilize and we look through. He put together a cool graph, and I don't have a whole background on it, but he did a couple graphs that I thought were interesting that showed up in my feed, and I was like, I'll check it out. And one of them was big time throws, like you were mentioning, the big time throws, right? Big time throws under pressure versus big time throws when the quarterback had greater than 2.5 seconds in the pocket, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, which I thought was fascinating. Jaxson Dart was up there, I always look, the first thing I look, all right, give me historical background. Well, some of the best guys in the league, as the graph goes up and towards the right, they have the historical backdrop of Patrick Mahomes is basically the highest of them. Josh Allen is up there. Tua, Trevor Lawrence. So it's not like it's no stat tells you the whole picture, and nothing is perfect, but those are guys that we all had a lot of, we liked a lot coming out of the draft and have had some level of success. And Lawrence is a story for a different day, but I like to see some of those names. Okay. And in that, Jaxson Dart is slightly ahead of Cam Ward, but he's the best in this class on that graph, okay?
Right.
Cam Ward's just behind him. And then below that, the kind of the Mendoza line, if you will, is you get to Shedeur and Quinn Ewers and Milroe and Howard and those guys. Thought that was interesting. Because to me, what throws relate to the NFL, big-time throws, and how do you do it under pressure? And then the other graph that he produced, quarterbacks under pressure and production, okay? Up there on this list, Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Tua, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. Like, that's a pretty good list. Okay, now you've got my attention. Of the guys that are in this class, Jaxson Dart is number one by not a massive margin, but a sizable margin, greater than the previous chart that I told you. Interesting. You ready? McCord, your guy, Syracuse, former Ohio State. A guy that you have pointed out that you like a little bit more than other people, maybe.
Right.
Let's just put it there. Will Howard, who we've talked about, really progressed as his career went on. Dylan Gabriel, and then really below the Mendoza line, Shedeur, Jalen, Cam Ward. Interesting. Again, just some numbers, because all this tape we watch to help have something that puts a little bit of perspective in the two areas that I think are critical. Big time throws, under pressure. I just thought
it backs up what you see on tape with Dart. He will strike deep. I think he does it. One of the things that jumped out to me is I love the way he reads safeties. You drift, you take a false step as a safety. It doesn't matter what the look is. If he has faith that his receiver can split the corner and the safety against two high looks or three high, whatever he's looking at, if you drift or take a false step as a safety, he's going to pull the trigger. He is going to take that shot because he has the confidence that he will get the ball there before you can recover.
I'd get into some of the other guys that kind of popped from Colorado and Ole Miss.
Trey Harris, the receiver. Trey Harris, the receiver, man.
Yeah.
He was hurt second half of the year. I don't know what he's going to run. I don't really care. I'm tired of I shouldn't say that, right? If he runs a 4.8, and I don't know if he's going to run because he has a groin injury. This dude has 2,000 yards over the last 2 seasons, and he only played in 7 games this year. And one of those games was Florida when he's hurt halfway through it, or fairly early on in that game. I love Trey Harris. I think if he's healthy, he's a guy we're maybe talking about sneaking into the first round.
I think he's going to rise a lot, and I don't know that it's going to be because of his 40-yard dash. I think it's going to be the health. I think it's going to be like some of the, lower body explosive, some of the
powerful.
Agility. Yes, powerful. I think this class is interesting, and it's not great at wide receiver. We got Ted McMillan from Arizona, Luther Burden from Missouri, Travis Hunter is a wide receiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wide receiver corner. So that's why I don't always lead with him, because I do think he's going to be drafted as a corner. With how much he will play wide receivers is TBD. But Emeka Ibuka keeps growing on me the more tape I watch. Matthew Golden is my dude. I just love Matthew Golden. And I get Golden at 3. Right there. You got Hunter 1 as a receiver corner, then McMillan 2, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify. Matthew Golden, I'm planting my flag on that guy. Luther Burden with the speed and explosiveness took a step back this year. How much of that was offense and quarterback driven? Emeka Ibuka is another guy. All those guys in the top 34, but start off with McMillan at 11. So it's not like the classes we've seen in recent years. A lot of other dudes in there as well. Trey Harris, I've got him down at 85, and I'm admittedly too low on him right now. I've got it after watching more Jaxson Dart and watching him in the games he was healthy. He's going to be rising up that board. Wasn't at the Senior Bowl. You're like
East-West. I think he was going to go East-West, but he wasn't there either. He missed the All-Star game because he's still not healthy.
Correct. So that'll be interesting to see with Trey Harris. But I think when it's all said and done, my point on this is I think he could be one of the top 6-7 wide receivers taken in this class, and maybe top 5. Truly.
Can I talk really quickly about another wide receiver that you have on that board that you talked about already about liking? And then I think you're a little low on still because I went back and watched him.
Yep.
Is the TCU kid Savion Williams. I mean, you like Deebo Samuel? If you like Deebo Samuel, you're going to love this kid, man. He is that guy. And he's a little bit stronger, he's a little bit bigger, a little bit not stronger. No one's stronger than Deebo, but he's a little bit bigger, same kind of power, can run the ball, can make a play as a receiver, make contested catches. The production could be a little bit better, but this kid's going to run in the same range as Deebo, be a little bit bigger than Deebo, and play that same kind of role. He's a guy, I think, I'm an optimist right now. All of a sudden, I'm an optimist. I love everyone. I think he could be moving up boards.
The show is like therapy for you. By the end of it, you're all giggles. I think, first of all, when you talk to scouts in the league, you talk about wide ranging from he's like, shh, don't keep him out of your mouth. Keep him out of your mouth, McShay. There's so much to work with there. Versatile weapon we could really use. He would fit great in what we're doing. We have a great, offensive mind. 2, yeah, you can have him. Fool's gold.
Really?
But I'll say, whether you love him or not, and we'll get to we'll do different position groups, and we'll get to all of this stuff. I told you about like a month or so ago. I'm glad you're joining the party.
You did.
But
I'm saying move him up. You're too low.
I will say, as we look ahead to our shows on the 26th, 27th, 28th, and March 1st at the Combine, I promise you, one of the names when we go through like the 5, 10 biggest risers and the biggest stories from the Combine, Savion Williams is going to be one of them. He's supposedly just, and you see it on tape, the explosiveness, his size. He's different. Breaking news. I guess it's not unexpected, but breaking news. Kellen Moore was just hired by the Saints as their new head coach. I don't know how much you want to.
I like it. I think it's a good hire.
I do too.
Yeah.
I was quite honestly, I was surprised that wasn't the hire in Dallas.
Yeah. For a number of reasons, right? I mean, it kind of fits. I think Kellen Moore doesn't need to be that, in front of the cameras as much as some other head coaches maybe do. And that would have fit with Jerry Jones kind of thing. And his history there, that hire would have made a lot of sense. But I think the Saints do well here.
I think it was Chris Spielman. We were doing games a while ago. It was Kellen Moore. Just a real quick story. Kellen Moore is a prospect. I was like, he literally has everything that you look for in a quarterback. He functions between his ears faster and more efficiently than just about any quarterback you'll ever evaluate. And I don't know that I've ever seen a quarterback with greater anticipation, getting the ball out and leading a receiver better. Like, I'm talking the top guy, but no quarterback you'll ever evaluate does everything right like this guy. But unfortunately, he just doesn't have size or an arm.
Do you remember?
And Spielman just killed me. He's like,
he was at the Senior Bowl, and we went down there, and it rained one day. And back then, the Senior Bowl has come so far. Back then, they would clear out the conference, the conference hall.
Oh my gosh!
And they would practice down there. So you're seeing Kellen Moore in pads all week, and then all of a sudden, rain day, they bring him in, and you're like, "Who's that kid?"
Me and White are like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah, you're like, "Oh my god, that's Kellen Moore." I mean, he looks like the guy
14.
next to you. Yeah, he looks like the guy next to you at the grocery store, and a little bit of Dylan Gabriel there. A little bit of kind of reminds me a little bit of Dylan Gabriel. Those two players, how good they are.
Gabriel's got a better arm, but the quick process,
but mentally processing and size.
My point in telling that whole story is like it's not surprising to me at all. And I remember talking to Chip Kelly about it. Like, this guy, like, his mental and his anticipation are like off the charts. And so to see a guy take all that football knowledge that he had at quarterback and to apply it to coaching, it's not shocking. But I like the hire. I really do. They've got to find a quarterback now. And they've got a lot of other things personnel wise. But I like him as an offensive mind, and that makes a lot of sense. All right, I wanted to finish on this, Mensch. And I know it's a dangerous neighborhood up there in your mind, but where are you in your process? Any players that are jumping out?
What do you got? I thought you were going to go in another direction, and I was going to lose my mind because this is the one player I wanted to talk about. And again, it kind of loops back to what we were just talking about with Shedeur and Jaxson. Just because I like this player doesn't mean I don't like the other player. Treyveon Henderson, we talked about him. We talked about him in the last pod. Hot name, rising, maybe a guy that goes in the first round. I've watched a ton of Ohio State tape since then. Couldn't agree more. Although I don't know if he's going to go in the first round. Couldn't agree more. I thought he was great this year. If you gave me the
I was
option,
expecting you to be like, you're an idiot.
oh no,
McShay. You're wrong.
Here's the but. Here comes the but.
Oh, okay.
North Carolina running back Omario Hampton is different. You talk about he's not Ashton Genty. Ashton Genty had the most rushing yards per game in the country this year. Who was second? Hampton. Genty, the most yards after contact this year. Who was second? Hampton. 220 pounds, man. He is 220 pounds. I hope he runs at the combine because I think he's going to run super well. You're talking about power, explosiveness. I think that's one of the differences between him and Henderson. Henderson, great contact balance, great toughness. Hampton's he is a pile pusher when he needs to be. And he's still got that explosive burst. I said Joe Mixon before. I will say Joe Mixon again. Omari Hampton, if there's going to be a running back that goes in the first round other than Genty, if there's going to be two, it should be Hampton.
I'm going to tier this for you where I am right now, and I still have more tape to finish up. Obviously, the combine and the workouts and everything else. Genty is in a tier of his own,
correct?
But I don't want to make him out to be superhuman, where it's like this, like one guy can do it and he's elite, and everyone else is just kind of good. Like I don't want that, and we'll get into a much bigger discussion on this later. Treyveon is 2 for me, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at these, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, Treyveon's 2 for me because of where the league is. And you need a back that can block, and he does it at an extremely high level with a nastiness and toughness about him that I love. And the speed and explosiveness that he provides when you see a guy like a Jahmyr Gibbs. Like I would love to see Treyveon in Chicago, okay? With Ben Johnson, with Caleb Williams in a rotation. I think he could have unbelievable success. But again, not a big gap between Henderson. In my mind, I'm bullish on Caleb Johnson.
I love him.
You can take your Omari and Hampton. I've got him as the 4th running back. And you can just press pause until we get to that spot. I like Hampton, got him in the top 50 as a running back. That's a tribute for me because I am not a running back draft guy. So if I got a back in the top 50, and you see the drop off after that when you get to like LaQuint Allen, Syracuse, Jordan James, who I love from Oregon, Dylan Sampson, I love from Tennessee, Cam Scatteraboo from Arizona State, all in the top 91 overall. But there's a drop off when you get to that kind of 3rd tier, if you will. So the first tier, if it's Ashton Genty, we'll call it that. Second tier is Treyveon Henderson, Caleb Johnson, Omari and Hampton. Then the 3rd tier would be LaQuint and James and Sampson and Scatteraboo and others. There's 2 other names though as we get closer.
Okay.
I need to finish up my tape and I want to see the workouts and everything else. Devin Neal from Kansas, I just adore his run style. I think that works in the NFL. And there's a name that we haven't talked a lot about, and I've watched just a little bit of tape. DJ Giddons from Kansas State.
He's getting a lot. It seems like he's picking up some steam right now. Yeah.
I like his game. I mean, there's so many, whatever. I want to throw that name out there. I like his run style. I think he's going to be an effective NFL back. That's it, I guess. Let's do a little cleanup here. Apparently the odds shifted. FanDuel, Super Bowl 60 odds. You're going to be happy, Mensch. Take a deep
Thank
breath.
God.
Your boy Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are plus 600 as the favorite, although not a significant favorite over the next 2 highest odd teams. Tucker just sent this to us via FanDuel. Chiefs are plus 650, and the Ravens, Eric DaCosta, who we just recently spoke to, the Ravens plus 650 as well.
That makes sense.
So those,
I was misled.
That's all right.
Thank God.
Probably got it earlier. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. I tried to keep it at 45 minutes, did an hour and 11 and 28 seconds. It's the best I can do, man. It's the best I can do. You can always fast forward if you're watching or listening on Spotify, on Apple, if you're watching on YouTube. We just appreciate it. You can tell, you can just sense it. We're fired up. We got so much more to get to. We're grinding away on tape. Like this is it's still getting dark early here in the Northeast. Like now's the time to do it. We come up for air in a couple months, but we're excited. The next 3 shows, we're going to take you behind the scenes. I'm tentatively scheduled to talk to a general manager. I'm trying to get their exact schedule for the offseason. I think that would be fascinating to share, like from the scouting your area to the cross checks to the top 50 meetings. I think like no one's ever shared that before. So I'm going to try to get an exact schedule to take you kind of behind the scenes and what goes on in that process. We're lining up GM interviews for the combine, and we just appreciate you being here. So if you can give us a dap, subscribe, like, tell a friend. Don't make me beg. It's not a good sign.
I'll beg.
I know you will. And Mensch will continue to be feisty, but look forward to talking to you in a couple of days. We'll see you soon. Thanks. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.